really a pleasure to be here. The new cyberwave of women's empowerment. A few years ago, I found myself, by accident, in the middle of a humanitarian crisis. I'd traveled to the Philippines to conduct a routine monitoring mission of a humanitarian program I was managing. We ran education programs in Cebu City, in the center of the archipelago, providing schooling and care for the poorest children from the city's slums. 3 days after I arrived, a fire broke out in one of the city's largest slums, where hundreds of families, homeless families, were squatting. The families fled the fire with just the clothes on their back. They lost everything, what very little they had, that is, including, tragically, the tools they needed for their simple livelihoods. They had nowhere to go. They returned to the site of the fire and carried on trying to live amidst the charred debris. Now, I just happened to be there. I quickly set up a partnership between the NGO I was working for and the Cebu Red Cross, and we carried out emergency relief operations to provide the families with basic items such as food, water, clothing, and tarpaulin shelter. During that time, I had the opportunity to speak with the families. Of course, the parents told me they were born in the slum. Their parents, their own parents, were born in the slum. Their grandparents were born in the slum, and their children were born in the slum. The families I met are among the millions, indeed billions, of people on our planet who are trapped in a vicious cycle of poverty. The parents shared with me their hopes that their children could get an education and employment and leave the slum. And they shared with me their fears. They were already struggling to survive before the fire. Now they'd lost even their livelihoods. They feared they couldn't afford to send their children to school. Now, the good news is that the emergency relief operations went very well. And when I returned to Europe, we implemented more education programs to get as many of the children as possible in that area into school. But that was a before and after experience for me. And I came back to Europe feeling angry at the injustice of poverty. And I felt driven to do more to help people like those in the slum in Cebu. Now, this was a few years ago. Facebook wasn't yet the force it is today. I think we all had a maximum of 5 friends on Facebook at the time. But it was rapidly developing. It was a few years after the launch of Kiva, the world's first online microlending platform, and we were seeing the widespread development of mobile technologies, such as mobile banking and e-learning, and we were seeing the rise of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. And it coincided with another global trend, an acceleration in what has been a growing global awareness over the last few years of the correlation between girls' and women's empowerment and socio-economic development. We were seeing the emergence of countless initiatives, local, national, and international, in all sectors and across the world, dedicated to girls' and women's empowerment. The world was waking up to the fact that girls' and women's empowerment is a key driver of social and economic progress and indispensable to sustainable development. Women's empowerment was starting to make global headlines. It was just after the New York Times special edition, Saving the World's Women, with a powerful wake-up article by journalist Nick Kristof, who is co-author with Cheryl Wooden of the book Half the Sky, Turning Oppression into Opportunity for Women Worldwide. The article, Saving the World's Women, declared that the protection of girls' and women's rights is the paramount challenge of the 21st century. So there I was, with my BlackBerry in hand. I hadn't graduated to an iPhone. And I asked myself, what to do? Cheryl Wooden famously said, this is not rocket science. This is not something that we have to invent something new. It's not something unsolvable. It just takes political will. And she's right. It just takes will. Well, I'd witnessed incredible will on the part of those families struggling to survive in the slum in Cebu. And over the years, I'd had the opportunity, the privilege, to live and work in Asia and Africa. Time and time again, I witnessed incredible determination, energy, and goodwill on the part of highly competent local people who were running grassroots initiatives and striving with very limited means and against all odds to improve the welfare of their communities. And I'd also seen a vast amount of goodwill around me, goodwill on the part of colleagues, friends, family, all wanting to make a difference at their own individual level, though sometimes bewildered as to how, and skeptical about the impact that their modest help might have. Well, I just put two and two together. On the one hand, digital connection and innovation in ICTs, information and communication technologies. And on the other, the growing awareness of the crucial central role of girls and women in ensuring the sustainable, the future of our communities and societies, indeed of our planet. And I thought, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to mobilize goodwill and support and accelerate those amazing grassroots initiatives out there. So, with a team of passionate social entrepreneurs, we created W4, Women's World Wide Web, the first online collaborative platform that connects people, as well as companies and organizations, with grassroots girls and women's empowerment projects in both developing and developed countries. Now, let's consider for a moment a few women around the world. In the Philippines, there's Teresa. She squats with 5 children in a cemetery. Yes, in a cemetery. In India, we can meet Kapilaban. She's a lily farmer. She lives and works in a poor rural area. In Swaziland, there's Mbali. She's a 23-year-old HIV-positive mother of 2 children. In Egypt, we can meet Isra Abdel Fattah. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But you may have heard of her because she became known as Facebook Girl during Egypt's 2011 revolution. And in Pakistan, Malala. Well, as you're all probably aware from the news, Malala was recently shot for being vocal about her desire to get an education. If we think about what connects these women, and in the case of Malala Girl, on the face of it, we could think of their lowest common denominator, their inferior status as women, and their struggle to overcome the harmful consequences, indeed potentially fatal consequences, of gender discrimination and inequality. But there's a much more positive, inspiring connection between these women. They are all change makers, driving progress in their communities and societies. And they all exemplify the progress and transformative potential for women's empowerment of digital technology. Let's take Kapilaban, the lily farmer in India. When she first got a mobile phone, she raved about the benefits. And she said, connected, women gave more strength. Disconnected, we will always stay behind. Now, Kapilaban was talking about how mobile connection had enabled her to access agricultural information services, and it enabled her to get her lilies to market in the most efficient and profitable way. But take Teresa in the cemetery in the Philippines. She may not have access to sanitation or electricity, but she does have a mobile phone, thanks to which she could connect with a local microfinance organization. With microcredit, she set up a small flower and candle vending business, and her income is the financial difference enabling her daughters to go to school. I've met Teresa. Mbali in Swaziland, thanks to her mobile phone, she was able to connect with a local organization providing an innovative mentor-mothering service which prevents HIV transmission from mothers to children. The organization Mothers to Mothers uses mobile phones to reach out and provide vital health services to HIV-positive women in rural areas. And today, Mbali is employed as an ambassador and a mentor mother in the program. Isra is one of numerous women in Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Bahrain, Yemen, who were using social media and cyber activism during the Arab Spring uprisings to advance the revolutionary struggles in their countries. And finally, Malala. Well, as you're no doubt aware, the shooting of 14-year-old Malala made global headlines. There were huge rallies in Pakistan as people were calling for the protection of girls' and women's rights. And since then, the Pakistani government has initiated the development of Malala schools. Today, thanks to digital technology, women across the world can increasingly have a voice and know that their voices will be heard. All of these women, no matter what their backgrounds or circumstances, if we Google today, we can read about all of them. Yes, even Teresa in the cemetery. Digital technology is providing women with all manner of life-enhancing, even life-saving services. In the Mediterranean, there's an abundance of digital initiatives that are helping to empower girls and women. We have microfinance platforms. We have e-learning platforms. We have mobile agricultural and health services, platforms to promote women's representation in the media. We have innovative digital applications to help protect girls and women from violence and harassment. We have innovative platforms that are helping girls and women to have access to ICTs and to obtain training in ICTs, and all sorts of support networks. But here's the thing, and this is the game changer. Digital technology, digital connection, is empowering all of us to be part of a wave of change. This image is from a digital campaign called Arab Women Uprising. You might know it. It was launched after the Arab Spring and mobilizes women and men to call for the protection of Arab women's rights. It's gathered thousands and thousands of supporters. If we consider the amazing women changemakers I mentioned, from Teresa in the slum, in the cemetery in the Philippines, to Malala in Pakistan, today we can all, directly or indirectly, connect with them. In our age of democratized philanthropy, citizen journalism and advocacy, crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, we can help to improve the lives of any or all of those women. We can take our mobile phone out of our pocket. We can make an online donation or an online loan. We can join a campaign. We can launch a campaign. We can help women access vital information, resources, and support networks. And we can hold our governments accountable for ensuring the protection of girls and women's rights and investing in their education, training, and entrepreneurship. It takes just one click. So we can all be change makers. As Ashoka, the global network of social entrepreneurs, says, everyone a change maker. It's simple. Today, I'd say, in our digital 21st century, we have an unprecedented opportunity to make a new wave, a cyber wave of women's empowerment. A powerful movement of grassroots, bottom-up, community-driven, cyber-driven, collaborative change. We're at a turning point for girls' and women's empowerment across the world, and we must seize this opportunity. It's urgent that we do so, and it's more than a moral imperative, not only because we should protect girls' and women's rights and unleash their entrepreneurial potential, but because the future of our societies and the world depends on empowering the other half of the sky. So let's connect and together make a global impact. Thank you for listening.